Hello everyone, welcome back for some more Let's Play Higurashi. So, things are going, bad. Like, I think we're going crazy, but at the same time, if the tips are to be shown, it also looks like the girls are definitely even unpossessed, unhinged. So, I'm not... You know what? I'm actually very happy that I don't think I fully understand what's going on. Because there's things that seem obvious that might be red herrings, but there also might be things that you think it's a red herring, but it's played straight. So I truly I don't know the mystery. And that's a good thing, right? It makes me want to keep playing to learn. So, anyways, this was the first time I'd ever woken with such clarity. Well, that's good. Maybe we're taking our normal pills. It was 5:59, just moments before my alarm would go off. That's me every day. If I have an alarm for 6 o'clock, it's 5:59. I'm waking up. If I have an alarm for 6:30, 6:29. My body knows. I don't even think I need alarm clocks at this point, but I still keep them on because, if you're late for work, that's bad. So I was amazed at the precision of my internal clock. I had made preparations for the next day of school before I went to bed. I changed quickly and descended to the deserted lower floor. Deserted because, okay, they're still asleep. Look, all I'm saying is, I'm still worried about the family, right? It appeared that my mom was still asleep. Neither breakfast nor lunch was ready. Yesterday, I just unilaterally declared that I'd be leaving early today, so it couldn't be helped. I also told my parents, hey, if I die, check the clock. Which, normal thing to tell family. I slathered jam on some bread and topped it with instant cocoa. Just as I was finishing up breakfast, Mom rose groggily from her slumber. Yeah, it's called, staying alive. Answering bluntly, I picked up my bag and stood after stuffing 2 slices of bread down my throat. I waited for her to make my lunch. It would end up being the same time as usual. If I did that, it would raise chances of me running into Rena or Mion on the way. Yes, from today onwards, I was going to school alone. Okay, for tax purposes? No. Is this a line that implies that she doesn't fully trust him? Hey, bring back the receipt so I know you're buying bread. That's interesting. I took the 1,000 yen bill from Mom and slipped it into my pocket. I have no reason to tell her every little detail. Now, do I? Finding it difficult answering the onslaught of questions, I made an annoyed face. It's not that I didn't trust my parents, I just couldn't rely on them. It couldn't help me. I could only hope they didn't get involved. It was safer that way. My mom's annoying voice was cut off by the slam of the door. For the first time since I moved here, I headed down the road to school, alone. I mean, by now you should probably know the path. Up until now, I'd always walked down the same path at the same time each day, so I always met with the same people at the same places. But today was different. I didn't meet the people I would normally, and nobody was at the places where I would have normally met them. Of course, Rena wasn't in the spot where we usually met. There wasn't anyone at the spot where we would have met up with me on. The length of the tree's shadows, the morning air, and the brightness of the sun. It's a completely different type of morning from what I was used to. Without a doubt, it felt strange. It left me with the impression that I had destroyed the illusion Hinamizawa had set up for me before it had enough time to prepare for all the props needed to deceive me. The person who called out to me was someone who we always passed by as we were taking a walk along the edge of the fields. Their name was, Dai Forgor. Of course, this wasn't usually the spot where we usually passed each other. I threw out a random excuse. I was being asked the same type of questions my mom was asking, so I answered them in the same uninteresting, vague tone. It wasn't funny being asked where Rena was each time I passed by someone, but maybe it was to be expected. It was because for so long we were always together so amicably. Even I felt that if I let my guard down, we could still be Stop it, Keiichi. Don't think about that anymore. You spent all day yesterday thinking about how dangerous it was to go soft, didn't you? A beep beep beep? Oh god. A car horn blared out of nowhere. Even though I was walking lost in thought, that horn was way too close. A mechanical behemoth barreled at me from behind, catching me completely off guard. By the time I turned around, the van's hulking chassis was almost on top of me. I'd seen plenty of cars veer to the opposite shoulder to avoid pedestrians, but this car was doing the opposite. It felt like there was somebody on the opposite shoulder, and the van was swerving in my direction to avoid them. That blissfully ignorant train of thought delayed me from realizing something much, much more important. Oh my god, the large mass was hurtling right at me. Was it going to hit me? The inside of my head instantly flooded with a painfully cold liquid. In that moment, the scene before me, no. Time itself had frozen. In the silence of that frozen moment, I compared the van, so close I had no way to dodge it, and my upper body, the upper half twisted awkwardly in order to look behind me. There was no way I could dive out of the way in my current position. If I lost focus now, this moment would unpause and I'd be plowed over, caught in this silly pose. Bend my upper body over towards the paddy by the side of the road. If I bent far enough away, I'd get away with just being hit by the side view mirror. As soon as the thought crossed my mind, the temporal stasis was shattered by the deafening sound of the van. The side mirror struck my shoulder, sending me spinning off through the air like a top locked in a contorted position. Ka-splash! Sent tumbling through the air, I crashed into the muddy paddy by the side of the road. My entire body was soiled and drenched. But the choice I made in that instance was unmistakably for the best. I was covered in mud, but the alternative was being hit by a car. But when the alternative was being hit by the car, it was the closest thing I could be to being unscathed. Rising up from the paddy, I had enough in me to glare over at the stopped van and yell profanities at the driver. I'm not sure if he was able to see me, but the van sped off suddenly. Wow, that's a literal hit and run. Like, that's it. Yeah. I couldn't help but continue yelling profanities. The disgrace from being covered in mud hurt me more than any physical wounds. I slogged through the muddy paddy and made my way back onto the road. And like the thing is, if it's this early in the morning in a small town, there's no one there to help you. Right? No bystanders. Shit. I'll track you down and sue you. I go looking for a van, I'm sure I'll find it in this little village. The path I was on had rice paddies on either side, and it became so narrow that one car could barely fit through. It wasn't a place you could tear full speed down in a car, let alone pass by pedestrians. Not only was it a narrow road, but the car just now was closer to my side of the road than the other when it went past me. Even as I cursed, I was desperately trying to suppress the dark cloud roiling up within me. This wasn't just a hit and run. That car just now was trying to run me over, wasn't it? And you just look in the vehicle and there's M. Bison smiling and laughing. Thinking back, I did feel like there had been a car creeping up on me slowly for a while. That's right. As soon as I parted ways with that person taking a walk, I had that feeling the whole time. If it had wanted to pass me, then it had no shortage of chances. Normally, I would have felt suspicious and turned around sooner, but I was lost in thought and now kicking myself for not realizing it sooner. And then, when the path became narrow and there was no one else in sight, he floored it. If I'd hesitated for even a moment, the result would have been no laughing matter. As the adrenaline rush from nearly being run over subsided, the realization of just how terrifying the preceding events were sunk in, there was no doubt about it. That van was intentionally trying to hit me. A cold, viscous sweat seeped from my scalp and slid down my back before dribbling off. That's some crazy alliteration. I struggled to avoid falling into a panic. There was still the possibility that this really was just an accident. Calm down, Keiichi, but also don't be so naive, Keiichi. Being that lax will get you killed next time. You need to always be on your toes. Don't give them any openings. If my enemy was really out to kill me, the next time they would use a more reliable method. If the time came and I was acting like I was now, getting covered in mud was the price I had paid for my own naivete. Covered in mud, but without injury. Not even a sprain. I guess this is what you would call the silver lining. I began walking again, this time cautiously. I wouldn't even show a hint of carelessness. I had suspected only Rena and the others up until now. No, it was because I had suspected them that I believed there were no other enemies. Ooishi-san had said so, didn't he? There was a possibility of a village conspiracy. Was I really so mired? Was I really mired so deeply in this situation that I had no choice but to try and carry on as usual? Would it be safest just hole myself up in my house? But the moment I abandoned my regular routine, everyone around me would abandon theirs as well. I was just too horrifying of a thought. I recall the tales Ooishi-san told me of when Hinamizawa was still called Onikakushi, a frightening tale of an entire village of demons hunting their prey, surrounding them and eating them alive. One must not interfere with the demons. One must pretend not to see it. The enemies were numerous, the whole village. The villagers, with their unwavering faith in the curse, would do nothing to help me. The strong sudden flash of sunshine. That's so many S's and SH's. Sha made me slightly dizzy and then ends with a Z. That's a tongue twister of a sentence. I had no idea what was going on anymore. When I suspected it was the work of man, I would catch a glimpse of Oyashiro-sama's curse. When I suspected it was Oyashiro-sama's curse, someone would poke their head out. What was coincidence? What was intentional? And what was just an absolute loser in a big truck, you know? Well, this was a van. I mean, van losers and truck losers are two different types of losers, so who was my enemy? Who was just a bystander? No, what I really, truly wanted to know was, how did I end up with the proverbial bullseye painted on my back seat? And my thought is it him? Or maybe there's something going on with his dad, right? Maybe his dad came in and is doing art of stuff they don't want art of, or is partnered with a company that they shouldn't, you know? Eventually, an answer in a form I could understand will appear. I don't care when that will happen, because until then, I cannot die. That alone fueled my resolve to fight, and will keep me alive. Oh boy, I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. Wonderful. I remembered seeing the. Oh, right, we need the metal bat. I remember seeing the metal bat in the gym storage shed. There was a padlock on the door barring my entry, so I took off my glasses to use my mystic eyes of, wait, that's a different game. At the very least, I wanted to get my hands on it before everyone else arrived at school. I circled around the school grounds impatiently, but all I could find were things like pieces of lumber, nothing I could bring into the classroom easily. Then, well, I had an epiphany. I should search inside the classroom. If there was something in the classroom to begin with, then there wouldn't be a problem. I mean, you might find some little sword hilts from your teacher, but you can't really use those. I could tell that everyone's indoor shoes were still in their lockers. Good thing it came early. Nobody else was here yet. I wondered, what could I find in the classroom? I didn't think I could find an especially effective weapon like a bat. But, well, it couldn't be helped at this point. Until the gym's storage shed was open, I needed to find a substitute. A lingering hint of naivete whispered that there was no way I'd be attacked at school. But such soft ideas would no longer protect me. To think that they were slowly making their way into parts of my life that I had once thought impenetrable. In the worst case, my own house might not be safe anymore. That was an incredibly frightening thought. But I believe that not considering the worst-case scenario would have been even more frightening. Anyways, I will survive. So long as I lived, and I will definitely be able to escape this labyrinth of nonsense. Definitely. My exploration of the classroom came to an impasse. That much was to be expected. There was no way there'd be anything could be a weapon in the classroom. In case of an emergency, there was nothing I could do but swing my own chair around. My gaze landed on the lockers that had come to be used for personal storage. The locker that Mion used to store her games was among them. Is there a switchblade in one of those, or like a hobby knife? You know, maybe you do. What about the gunpla club? Is there a gunpla club? There's one for each person in the class all lined up. Of course, there was one for me as well. Oh yeah, there was still supposed to be a tracksuit in my locker. Seeing me covered in mud would be strange. I should go change later. Well, but first I needed a weapon. If one of my classmates came, it would be hard to rummage through all the lockers. I swiftly began opening the lockers one by one, mostly just filled with things like gym clothes, personal items, and umbrellas. An umbrella. I couldn't find anything better. Well, this would have to be my weapon. I was about to give up on finding anything decent when I opened a locker that held exactly what I wanted. It was, without a doubt, a metal bat. It was well worn and pretty beaten up, but there was no doubt it was usable. In that locker that reeked of mold. This is Satoshi's locker, isn't it? In the locker that reeked of mold, there also hung a baseball uniform. Probably the locker of a student in a peewee league or something like that. If that was the case, then he'd probably ask for it back. At the time, I could hear the voices of the children scuffling their way noisily from the hallway. Amongst them, I could make out Rika-chan and Satoko.
Ohayou gozaimasu desu.
I can't handle the way she speaks. It's so funny. I nonchalantly hid the bat I was holding behind my back, which is a little tough to do, you know? Think about the size of a baseball bat. How are you doing that? You know, but here's the thing. I don't think anyone would be like, I would tell the truth on this. I'd be like, yeah, there was some guy in a van, and he clipped me with his vehicle. I mean, if it's part of the conspiracy, they might be like, don't bring up the conspiracy, but how would we know it's part of the conspiracy? It could just be a guy in a van, you know? With that said, I began taking off my clothes. Satoko began to blush, just as I expected her to. I'm only going down to me undies. As Satoko feigned disgust, she went into the hallway still blushing. Conversely, Rika-chan continued to stare at me, preparing to change. Oh, okay. Alright. She deliberately pouted and looked at me with upturned eyes. Rika-chan appeared to be satisfied with being considered a lady, made her way to join Satoko in the hallway. Just as I breathed a sigh of relief, Rika-chan suddenly stopped and turned back towards me.
圭一は野球を始めますですか?
Yeah, see, what did I tell you? There's no way to hide a baseball bat behind you. Seemed that Rika-chan had noticed the bat.
ああ、ちょっとさ、体がなまってさ、ちょっと素振りでも始めようかなってな。
健康に気を使うのはとても良いことだと思いますです。
She was talking like an old lady, unlike Satoko, who talked like an old lady, despite her appearance. After saying that, Rika-chan started to leave again, but stopped and looked back at me once more.
そのバットなくさないでくださいねです。
Seems she already knew I took it out of someone's locker. There was no name on the locker door. It's totally Satoshi's. I didn't know whose bat it was, but I would be borrowing it until they complained. It wouldn't be for long, just until the gym storage shed was opened. After quickly changing into my tracksuit, I checked the time. Still plenty of time before class began because I came so early. I took the bat in one hand and went out to the schoolyard. That was, of course, to practice my swing. I needed to make it known that I would always have a bat on me so I could practice my swing. At some point, the sunlight had become even stronger. Disregarding my classmates as they made their way to school, I took my position in the shadow of the school building. I wasn't the academic type. I wasn't much of an athlete either. I might get muscle pain if I just suddenly started swinging. I should at least start with some warm-ups. Well, I doubt anyone would think I was doing something out of the ordinary, which was the exact opposite of my actual mental state. I gripped the bat and swung lightly. Bat was by no means light, and weight would make it a reliable weapon when I needed it to be. Of course, I could only pray that the moment I needed to use this as a weapon would never come. Just carrying it around could deter attacks against me. At least that's what I hoped.
あれケイちゃんあんた何やってんの?
Being bombarded with such a hysterical voice, I jumped.
ケイチくん野球部だよ野球部だよ
It was Rena and Mion.
先に行ったって言われて驚いたけどケイちゃんあんた何やってるわけ?
見てわからないかよ。素振りだよ。甲子園だよ。別にダイエットでもいいぞ。
ダイエットってケイちゃんそんなに太ってたっけ?
ああ、知らなかったろ。実は三段腹なんだ。もちもちでタプタプなんだぞ。
もちもちでタ
Stop.
プタプ
Be normal.
レナ、変な想像しなくていいぞ。
Why, you're into the weirdest things. To disrupt Rena from imagining something that vulgar, I rustled her hair messily.
じゃあまあ頑張って県大会を目指してちょうだいよ。おじさん応援してるわ。野球部の強い高校教えよっか。そこにいる左腕の亀田くんがすごいピッチャーなんだけどさ。頑張ってね。
Seems they've already taken me for a baseball nut, but oh well. Well, they really did make it to the championship. Well, it would be a cinch. After all, I'd be the pitcher and catcher. I'd pitch the ball, then run past the ball I just threw and change over to be the catcher in a burst of super incredible explosive speed. What am I talking about? I mean, it's just a stupid joke, but... Are you okay, bud? I laughed dryly at that ludicrous image. Coming back to my senses, I smashed the bat against the ground.
くそ、何笑ってんだよ、俺。
Yeah, okay, well, you're not doing any justice to your image, buddy. I pounded the ground over and over. With each impact, the reverberation traveled through the bat, stung my hands. They smile at me like that again, I'll... Don't allow anyone close to me. Don't trust anyone. No matter how many times I tell myself that. They made me smile like that, I already knew quite well that there were demons dwelling in my smiling friends. Oh, better tell Charlie. But I just couldn't believe it. Did that kind of split personality really exist? Like how Rena confessed to the doctor, were they simply being possessed by Oyashiro-sama? In other words, did a supernatural being like Oyashiro-sama really exist, and was it possessing everyone to try and kill me? Yeah, that would be wonderful. If only everyone were actually my friends all along, and everything was all just Oyashiro-sama's fault.
前原圭一のバカ野郎。 だから
I yelled out, drawing out all the power from the pit of my stomach, and raised the bat violently into the air.
甘えるんじゃね
Oh my god, dude. As I screamed out with all my might, I beat the metal bat into the ground over and over. With every impact, my weakness was being beaten down. Smash, forget, smash, don't be soft. Smash, know your enemy. Smash, like hell, I'd let them kill me. My shoulders heaving up and down from my ragged breathing, I heard the first bell ring just as I calmed down. We're being very normal. We're being extremely normal. I gasped with a sudden realization. That was the final bell. As I felt all the tension drain from me, I let out a deep breath. My mind was in a muddled state for much of the entire day. I didn't feel like I was awake, but I didn't feel like I was asleep either. I couldn't say it was especially comfortable, but I felt like a kind of relief that the sanctity of the school part of my daily life had yet to be violated. How long would I have to keep on living like this? I could only grit my teeth and bear with it as this living hell slowly gnawed away at me.
ケイチくん、やろうやろう。部活の時間なんだよ。
Oh boy. The sound of Rena's voice brought me back to my senses.
ほらほら、ケイちゃん、ぼーっとしない。机を寄せて寄せて。
Everyone was moving their desks together as usual. That's right, it was happy, fun club time. But I had no intention of taking part. I haphazardly shoved the contents of my desk into my bag as I prepared to go home. It was a weak-handed gesture to avoid actually having to say I'll be going home now.
なんだよ、ケイちゃん。今日も直帰なわけ？
Leon sounded quite disappointed.
気分が乗らないんだ。しばらくほっといてくんないかな。
The tone of the words that spilled from my mouth matched Mion's disapproving glare. I felt like the air in the room had dried out. Satoko looked like she was about to say something, but perhaps dissuaded by the mood, she swallowed her words and stayed silent. Nobody said a thing. I took that to mean I could leave if I wanted to. But the collective gaze of the four of them, like the tiny pins used to mount an insect in a display, held me in place. Rena was the one who cut through the heavy mood.
ケイチくん、やっぱり女の子と一緒に遊ぶのなんか嫌だったかな？
Literally, gender has never come up as a concept in this game before. That has nothing to do with it. It's the murder stuff. She said it in such a melancholic tone that it sent a wave of pain racing through my heart. This pain was going to kill me. I wanted it to be the soft part of me that could still feel pain. I tore at my chest, violently tearing out the pins that held me in place.
そういうわけじゃねえよ。
I'd only be hurting myself by saying anything more, so I swallowed my words. Cutting things off there, I turned away and exited the classroom. They didn't speak a word to me as I left. It was a long, dull trip back home, but I didn't lose focus. I firmly squeezed the grip of the bat, which was already soggy from sweat. Realizing that, I wiped it down with my sleeve. If something were to happen, I wouldn't want it to be slippery. Since this morning, I'd become especially sensitive to the presence of cars. Even when walking, my ears pricked up and sought out threatening sounds and presences that could be closing in. And that was why I could hear it. Without a doubt, there were footsteps. Those footsteps had matched up perfectly with mine for a while now. From what I could sense, it was just one person. But I had no intention of being careless. Did they intend to follow me, like that car this morning, until they're at a good location to assault me? Then it wasn't a good idea to keep walking like this. I stopped walking and looked back. The wooded path crowded with trees responded with silence, as if there was nobody there to begin with. But I wouldn't be fooled. I was certain footsteps were following me. And just as I stopped, the footsteps stopped as well, meaning the person following me wanted to keep their distance. That was, without question, proof that I was their target. I held my breath, waiting for the presence to panic and start moving again. Trees rustled with the sound of the wind. The Higurashi also joined in the dissonant chorus, trying to throw my focus into disarray. Had 5 minutes passed? Or had I been like this for the whole 30 minutes? It was so hard to breathe that I might have suffocated. It seemed I would be the first one to panic. Without a doubt, he was lurking in the shade of that tree with bated breath. And I'd make the first move. I fixed my grip on the bat. I raised it up to my shoulder to be ready to swing it at any
おい
time.
いるんだろそこに
With all my might, I screamed at whoever was hiding in the shade of the trees. But the presence in the shade didn't budge. Until the moment I found them, they had no intention of revealing
分
themselves.
かってんだよそこにいるのはよ
I screamed out angrily at them, but even still, they didn't move at all. Then I'll go over there myself. With all due vigilance, I approached step by step. Stepping into the tree's shadow, I saw a human figure there. That figure was curled up like a small animal.
レナ
Well, that was a nasty way of saying it. When she realized I had found her, her expression softened. She seemed apologetic, but wasn't going to speak a word.
なんか俺に用かよ
Oh my god, we sound mad. I wouldn't accept that silence and scream the question at her.
別にその
Rena was in a panic with tears welling up in her eyes. But it was obvious that she had been following
部
me.
活はどうしたんだよ
ケイイチくんがお休みしたから
Hmm.
レナもお休み
関係ないだろ俺なんか気にしないで遊んでろよ
だってケイイチくんのこと心配で
See, and like the thing is, like, this sounds so sincere, but like, who or what do we trust? Thinking about how I've been acting up until now, it wasn't hard to imagine that my behavior could be perceived as strange. So Rena was concerned. At a quick glance, that's how it would seem. But I wasn't going to let my guard down that easily. Even if that really was the case, she still wouldn't have to do something like try to tail me. She should have called out to me when I was leaving and gone out right with me. But Rena didn't do that. She kept her distance from me and matched my walking speed. On top of that, she matched the sound of her footsteps and deviously tried to hide her presence from me. Then, after she realized I had noticed that she was there, she held her breath as if trying to hide from me. She wore a timid expression, but that would force one to take pity on her, but without a doubt, she was tailing me.
もうついてくんなよ
Still glaring at Rena, I continued walking onwards. After I'd walked for a bit, she ignored my command and began walking again. So I yelled at her once more.
ついてくるなって言ってるだろ
だってレナの家も同じ方向だし
じゃあレナが先を歩けよレナが見えなくなったら俺も歩く
Dang. Again, out of context, though, you just sound like an asshole. I moved out of the way and waved my bat violently to urge her forward.
レナはケイイチくんと一緒に帰りたいな
Making a pitiful expression, she meekly squeaked out the words in a voice that she knew would cut into my heart. That agitated me to no end. I knew it was a lie. If you wanted to go home together, then you should have called out to me. Now you're just blurting out random lies.
ごめんなさい
It seemed that the seething anger within me was written all over my face. Even without me saying anything, Rena had understood what I was feeling inside.
分かったならほら行けよ
I swung the bat, urging her again to walk. Rena looked back and forth between me and the bat and started walking hesitantly, then stopped again.
早く行けよ早く
行くからそのバットやめてよ怖いの
Rena guarded herself while pointing at me holding the bat. She may have realized that I wasn't planning on using this bat for baseball. I lowered my bat, but still guardedly opened the way for
行
her.
けよこれなら文句ないだろ
There was nothing else she could protest. She passed by me timidly so as not to set me off. As I watched her pass, She stopped completely after having barely moved at all.
おい、立ち止まるなよ。
Then, a powerful gust blew past us, barraging my face with dust. The dust got in my eyes and clouded my vision. While rubbing my eyes with my left hand, I swung blindly with the bat in my right, protecting the small opening I had presented. Did I say that right? I think I said that wrong. The small opening I had presented. Yeah, okay. But Rena didn't even try to attack during that opening. Attack me? No. She hadn't budged an inch. I could tell from the sound of her fluttering skirt in the wind. Do those make sounds? Okay. As her skirt settled, so did the silence. At that moment, the voice inside me immediately warned me of impending danger. I was caught by surprise. The smell of the air had changed. Without me realizing it, the air around me suddenly felt like a calamity was about to befall me. It was like the air had become invisible concrete, like Rena and I were locked in this space. Rena didn't move an inch. Almost also unable to move, I stared at her back. Rena was the first to break the silence. Instantly, she altered her stance. I felt like I had just witnessed her shift from Rena into that other person who looks like Rena. But the voice was one I knew well, which filled me with a kind of bewildering pity. Carelessly, I felt relief upon hearing that pitiful voice.
ごめんね。聞いてもいい？
Too shy to even turn around, Rena squeezed her voice out desperately as she trembled.
なんだよ。
どうしてバットなんか持ってるのかな？
The question Rena asked was by no means unexpected.
俺が何を持ってたっていいだろ。
でも、昨日まで持ってなかったし。どうして突然？
別に突然でもいいだろ。俺がバットを持ってるとおかしいかよ。
だって圭一くん、野球とかしない人だったでしょ？おかしいよ。
I couldn't tell what answer she was looking for, and I was getting tired of answering her.
突然、野球がしたくなったんだよ。それじゃおかしいか？
おかしいよ。
She answered instantly, and that annoyed me slightly.
突然野球がしたくなった。素振りがしたくなったから、バットを持ち歩いてる。それのどこが変なんだよ。
変。おかしい。絶対。なんで圭一くんまで。
Two?
ぶつくさとうるせえやつだな。
Two, huh?
俺がスポーツに目覚めるのが、そんなに変かよ。
I tried to sound a bit more threatening to end the conversation. Until my suspicions about Rena were cleared, I had no obligation to answer her questions.
ごめんね。そんなに怒らないで。
Rena still didn't turn around and spat out words of apology one after the next.
最後に一個だけ教えて。
これ以上話す気も教える気もねえよ。早く行けよ。
Yelled loudly at her, causing her to flinch like she had been struck. Seeing her in such a pathetic state caused my heart to ache sorely. But even though she was afraid, she stubbornly kept herself from moving. Before I was able to threaten her again, Rena asked her final question.
なんでバットまで同じなの？
Okay, so I was kind of wondering, did Satoshi also go through the exact same clear psychosis that, from an outside perspective, we're going through? Or was he also someone who figured out the secrets, and what did she mean by the bat was the same? I had no idea what she was talking about.
お前、何言ってんだ？
だから、なんでバットまで同じなのかなって。
何を言ってんだか全然わかんねえよ。もっとはっきり言え。
Even still, Rena didn't turn around. After inhaling deeply, she screamed.
だから、どうしてバットまで
Yep.
サトシ君と同じなの？
Okay.
サトシって、え？
Upon hearing the name out of the blue, I became dumbfounded for a brief moment. By Satoshi? Did she mean the student who transferred out last year? No, that couldn't be. Rena had tried to cover it up by saying he transferred, but Ooishi-san told me quite clearly that he was missing. He was a student who sat at my seat until last year. He was believed to have been demoned away by Oyashiro-sama's curse. I didn't know the details about his disappearance. The aunt he lived with was killed in the night of the Watanagashi by a drug addict, and not long after that, he suddenly vanished and now was missing. That Satoshi and I were... what? My gaze fell to the bat in my hands. Could it be... Satoshi Hojo? It was a bit difficult to see, but that was written on the white tape at the end of the bat. I see. So this was Satoshi's bat.
Oh, これ
Yeah.
サトシのバットだったんだな。誰も使ってなかったんでちょっと借りたんだよ。いいだろそれくらい。
そんなことじゃないの。
The way Rena said that made it seem like this bat was something that should never be touched. Like it was some sort of offering at a shrine or a memento of the deceased. I could only stand there, perplexed and unable to respond. Rena continued speaking without waiting for a reply.
サトシ君の時とどうしてそんなにまで同じなの？
Interesting. Okay, so and this is something that I do like in visual novels. I know some people don't like it. A lot of visual novels will do a thing where they imply like you are the second or third or fourth of a cycle, you know? Think about like the Grail Wars and Fate. Think about, stuff like that, where there was a previous generation, there was a previous thing. And, normally that stuff goes unsaid, right? Like that's the backstory. Sometimes it gets expanded upon, like at Fate Zero, right? But I do like that idea of there was a history, right? And of course, that means there's easy sequel bait or prequel bait, one might say. But at the same time, it does lead to, that idea that there is more to the world, right? I'd like that. So we'll see here. Rena was talking about more than just the bat belonging to Satoshi.
サトシ君もそうだった。野球チームには入ってたけど、本当は野球なんか好きじゃない人だったの
All
に。
baseball's fault. It's all the problem with sports.
それが俺とどう関係が。
サトシ君もある日突然バットを持ち歩き始めたの。チームに入ってただけでスポーツなんかしない人だったのに。
What about it? I closed my mouth before I could say that out loud. Listen carefully, Keiichi. Ren is trying to tell us something important.
サトシ君もね、ある日突然一人で投稿するようになったの。ケイチ君みたいに。そしてね、ある日突然素振りの練習を始めたの。
Wait. Was the opening Satoshi? I thought it was going to be a flash forward with Keiichi. Was the opening thing about Satoshi?
ケ
Oh.
イチ君みたいに。そしてね、ある日突然バットを持ち歩くようになったの。ケイチ君みたいに。そしてね、ある日突然。
And one day he suddenly... What? Ren had swallowed her words. Ren's sudden silence brought back a hush back to the surrounding area. It was then I could finally digest the content of the entire conversation. She was saying my chain of actions was exactly the same as Satoshi's. What was the meaning of this? Up until just now, I'd forgot all about Satoshi. I never paid much thought to him in the first place. Not only that, I didn't even know anything of what he'd done. My actions today should have been of my own creation, after all the planning I'd done. But they had been the exact same as Satoshi's. Then Satoshi... No, more importantly, if both Satoshi and I acted the same way, then there really was a good possibility that what happened after would be the same.
レナ、ある日突然サトシはどうしたんだよ。
Rena knew. She knew what became of Satoshi. No, forget about what happened to a guy in the past. Rena knew what was going to happen to me.
答えろよレナ。サトシはどうしたんだよ。
With that, I grabbed Rena's shoulder violently and forcibly turned her around to face me. As I faced her, I felt a jolt travel throughout my whole body.
言ったよね、ケイチ君。
It was that person that I didn't know. At least it definitely wasn't the Rena Ryugu I've been talking to up until now. That voice just now didn't have a trace of the trembling or the emotion it had before. The amount of regret I felt for turning her around so carelessly was unsurpassed. And gaze that pierced me like a cold needle, the smile on her face that invoked an image of having been carved out by a knife. Chills went down my spine. My mind froze under a layer of rime. Both of Rena's eyes pierced through mine, leaving me unable to look away, as if to remind me of the fear from that time. Rena brought her face close to mine, so close I could feel her breath. Her face had filled my entire field of vision. Then, her sharply shaped lips grew even sharper, like the curve of a crescent moon. She grinned.
言ったよね、圭一くん。
After a short pause, Ren repeated the same words again.
サトシくんはね、転校しちゃったの。
Transferred. Meaning what? What Rena meant must be some new definition of transfer that I was not previously aware of. My throat and lips dried up. I couldn't even acknowledge what I had just heard. All I could do was swallow down my own saliva. It would seem that Rena saw that as a nod. She pulled her gaze back and spryly stepped back in 2-3 paces. As she did, my legs gave out and I fell to my knees pathetically. Rena, and me on my knees underneath her emotionless smile. That had to be a very odd sight indeed. Seeing me in that pathetic state, she neither scoffed at me nor held out her hand. But I could neither stand nor escape with her gaze shooting through my eyes. There was undoubtedly a metal bat in my hand, but right now it was useless to me. I was like a fly caught in her web. Heavy sweat beaded all over my body. I could feel it dripping down my skin.
しないよね、圭一くんは。
Rena finally released me from that cage of time after what felt like an eternity. But her question was missing something important and was incredibly vague. Once again, I swallowed hard, urging her on.
何をだよ。
What did she not want me to do?
転校。
Oh, God. 2 terrifying syllables, huh? So I'm trying to figure out how much of this is pitch hitter, take up another's bat. I wonder how much of this is are we the ones going crazy and they're being normal? And when we see those eyes, it's when we see a fake version of them. But then that makes me wonder about the tips section. Are they from whose perspective, right? You know, are they factual? We saw that happen and it's real, or are they someone's interpretation? I don't know. Satoshi and I had what? All my well-planned actions throughout the day turned out to be nothing more than a reenactment of what Satoshi had done. Satoshi, had he really been in the same situation as I was now? The friends he had gotten along with had suddenly changed and, for no reason, at least none that I noticed, planned to kill him? Then, fearing for his life as I am, he got a bat to protect himself and carried it around every day to practice his swing. Then one day, suddenly, he transferred. My blood went cold, causing a prickling sensation to course throughout my veins. Starting near my heart, it radiated outwards from the top of my head to the soles of my feet, chilling every part of me without recourse. What did she mean by transfer? What did she mean by transfer? Was Satoshi still at wherever he transferred to? Was he the only one who'd be able to understand me? Would he be able to tell me why it all ended up like this? More importantly, where did he transfer to? What did she mean by transfer? What did she mean by transfer? Before I knew it, I was at my front door. The frigid knob was hard to turn. Was nobody home? It wasn't that odd of an occurrence. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the single key attached to my fur seal keychain. I stepped into the entryway. Just as I was about to take off my shoes, a chill ran down my spine. Somebody had entered right behind me, like a classmate messing around, standing right up against my back. You're kidding, right? It had to be my imagination. Logically speaking, it was impossible for someone to hide their presence within my personal space all the way through the door, but there was undoubtedly someone behind me. Hey now, Keiichi. How do you know they're there, even though they're behind you? Because I could hear the sound of flowing hair. There's no other reason I'd hear that sound. That was their presence. Because I could hear the sound of them blinking. Keiichi Maebara, there's no way you could hear that. My most base instincts were warning me of the presence. Common sense was telling me that was just my imagination. It was just my imagination. There was nobody behind me. I began to erase the mental image of an eerie figure standing behind me. But at the same time, I asked myself, if there was nobody, then what was I feeling as an uncomfortable sensation crawled up my spine? Actually, wouldn't it be better if there was somebody there? If there was nobody there when you turned around, would you be able to accept that? I'd be able to answer all those questions just by looking behind me, but I didn't have enough courage to do even that simple task. All right, I could try speaking to them. The person behind me might answer me. It was a random thought. I didn't care how I went about it, just so long as I didn't have to turn around. If I had calmed down and thought about it, I would have known that wouldn't have solved anything.
どなたですか?
I spoke in such a hoarse, broken voice that I couldn't believe it was my own. I could almost feel them contemplating their response. I felt it. There's no way I should be able to do that. Calm down, Keiichi. It's all in your head. That time, I was certain I heard it. As if hesitantly trying to answer my inquiry, I was certain I could hear the sound of somebody inhaling. I heard it. I heard it. I heard it clearly. It was a girl. A young girl. I didn't know who, but a tiny speck of courage in me, however reckless it was, inspired a primal yet fitting solution to this current predicament. A scream! All the force in my body released from my lungs and through my throat, ceasing all thought processes in my head, suppressing all my thoughts and emotions. I began to collapse like a house of cards, somehow managing to twist my body and look back as I did so. It was definitely there. Right there. Somebody was there. Until the moment I turned around, until the area behind me, until I brought the area behind me into my field of vision, they were definitely there. Falling face up, my eyes traced the remnants of the presence suspended in the empty space. Couldn't be. They were invisible. They looked like they weren't there, but were they actually still standing there? As I screamed, all the emotions I was holding back burst free in a violent wave. However, I was decidedly calm as my emotional dam collapsed. The turbulent wave of pent-up emotions was skillfully diverted into a torrent of aggression. That emotion was definitely required to extricate myself from the bizarre situation happening right in front of me. In my state of heightened lucidity, I entrusted my body to the fury. The metal bat held firm in my right hand as if drawn there by a magnet. A mid-level sweep would be the hardest attack to dodge. I remember reading something like that from a book about swordsmanship or something. I brandished my will to fight. The afterimage of that amalgamation of metal flashed as it swung left from right, beating against the entryway. The bat slammed into the right wall, the tip rebounding violently. Very calmly, I transferred the force of the rebound into a sweep to the left. The door of the shoe cupboard was split into pieces. Those two swings whiffed through empty space, but they seemed to have a great psychological impact on the enemy. I could feel the panic emanating from that space. An attack wasn't the only thing required. I extracted the bat from the cupboard it was embedded in and screamed as I spun my entire body in a large arc. Okay, for real, I don't know how people play this without voice acting, because this truly heightens the experience. My scream shook the air, imbuing my ferocious swing with even more destructive power. Crack! Without mercy or restraint, my violent strike, with certainly fatal force behind it, shattered the top of the cupboard. None of my attacks struck the enemy. My ferocity had certainly seemed to impact them. Breathing heavily, my body soaked in sweat, the invisible enemy, there but not there, dispersed. When I was certain that the enemy had retreated, I locked the front door and latched the chain. No way. Had it only feigned retreat and was now inside my house? Once again, I channeled my aggression and searched the house for the presence. But it was gone. I had succeeded in fending it off. At that moment, the tension drained from my body and I let out a deep sigh of relief. All the emotions I'd been holding back chaotically merged together and began to flood out. A hodgepodge of fear, accomplishment, and disbelief all mixed together and began to flow through my body. Being unable to deal with each individual feeling, I beat them all back with the strongest exhaustion. Even in this moment, I remained composed. After checking that all the doors to the house were locked, I went up to my second floor and closed the curtains. I straightened my back and tilted my head back a little rather, but clearing my mind of all my idle thoughts, I managed to calm down even more. What was that at the front door? There was definitely something there. Thinking about it, maybe it was just an apparition I dreamed up in my confused state, but I really didn't think that was the case. Calm down, Keiichi Maibara. Compose yourself. But no matter how calmly I thought about it, what just happened wasn't a figment of my imagination. It was obviously a supernatural phenomenon. Without a doubt, something was behind me. It wasn't some sort of illusion I saw amidst my confusion and disorientation. Proof I had just one piece. When I asked, "Who is it?" they inhaled as if they were about to answer. The sound had clearly reached my ears. The situation I was in now was still unclear. Either I'd been possessed by the supernatural phenomenon known as Oyashiro-sama's curse, or this was a ruse by the villagers who believed in it and were imitating it. Either way, their motives were unclear. The roundabout way it had been done was also still a mystery. If it was perpetrated by humans, that would mean admitting that it was Ren and the rest of them doing it, but it would be solvable. Ooishi-san and the rest of the police would surely arrest my enemy. But if it was a manifestation of Oyashiro-sama's curse, I wondered what would happen. Ooishi-san very clearly declared that curses didn't exist. At that time, the words were pretty dependable. But as they were now, with the rising possibility that the perpetrators were not human, they suddenly seemed quite unreliable. If I told Ooishi-san this was the work of Oyashiro-sama's curse, what would happen? Couldn't imagine his reaction, but it would go without question that a void would rapidly expand between myself and Ooishi-san, with me having so few allies to begin with and not being able to confidently declare whether or not this was a curse. There was no merit to doing that. I better keep the facts of what just happened at the doorway to myself. It'd be better if I didn't add what happened here to the memo on the clock. There was still ever so slight possibility that I was actually confused when I thought I was composed and that I was just going berserk in the entryway. How wonderful would that be if that was really what happened? I would be able to refute Oyashiro-sama's curse. If I denied Oyashiro-sama's curse, that would mean admitting that Rena and the rest were perpetrators. If I said that Rena and the rest weren't the perpetrators, then that would mean believing in Oyashiro-sama's curse. By denying both of those, I would be admitting that I myself was losing it. The three options from which I couldn't choose became a trilemma of sorts. I've never heard that term. Oh my god, that's so good. Well, of course, because die means two, right? Yeah. They mixed together and formed a whirlpool in my head, making my head spin. Once again, I straightened myself and leaned my head back slightly to cool myself down. Calm down, Keiichi. Accept what has actually happened as reality. Stop thinking of anything more than that. But I couldn't help but think of it. How wonderful it would be if it turned out that I was delirious and everything up until now was a figment of my imagination. Oyashiro-sama's curse wouldn't exist and I would still be the bestest buddies with Rena and the rest. I would have to be crazy. That was the first time in my life I'd ever wished for such a thing. So I think he's crazy. That scared me. I thought that was the real phone. And once again, I don't have a real phone anymore. Well, I have a cell phone, but it definitely doesn't make this noise. The phone rang noisily downstairs. Generally, there were no calls for me, so I never really answered the phone much, but since my parents weren't here, I had no choice. I squirmed off the bed and went downstairs. This is way too happy music. This is way too happy. Oh boy. I was slightly worried that the invisible presence was his mom, and he was just going to town on her. I was actually so worried about that. I intuitively had a bad feeling about this. It's because I thought she was going to ask me to go out and buy some things. So I took the initiative.
何別に俺夕食はインスタントでもいいよまだいっぱいあったでしょ
The other day, we went out as a family and bought a whole case of cup noodles. I want to get a bunch of different kinds, actually, but they refused since the individual packs were expensive. So instead, I got a whole case of the mega-sized pork bone and ginger-flavored ones. I'm like, that would be good, actually. My parents don't like strong flavors and didn't touch any of them, so the cupboards were still full of them.
買い物に行く必要はないんじゃないの
圭一、買い物のお願いじゃないの。お父さんとお母さんね。お仕事の関係で急遽東京に行かなくちゃならなくなった。
Oh, that's gonna be like a few days then.
今から
This was really abrupt.
もう着いちゃってるの。お昼には出発してたからね。
Oh boy. It's quite a distance to Tokyo from Hinamizawa. Gunning at full speed down the highway would still take 6 hours. Dad has a license, but since he doesn't like the highway, they likely took the train. It would have taken longer. Oh boy. Great. Now we're home alone having a mental health crisis. That's wonderful. Now that she mentioned it, I did remember they talked all the time about how his job prospects weren't looking so good. I mean, literally, bro, just start drawing furry art. You'll become rich instantly. Part of my father's particular fragile artistic personality, his motions changed as easily as the fall sky. You could also say he just couldn't take criticism. Oh, you mean like most artists? That's a lie. That's a lie, actually. Real artists take criticism pretty well. The problem is most criticism they get isn't criticism, it's literally just bullying, so... That is true. I've come to learn the importance of having actual face-to-face meetings for stuff like that. As their son, there was nothing I could say once they started talking about work. Great. Okay. He said what you shouldn't say. Yeah, okay, so my only thought is, well, at least the really nice mom won't be brought in when the inevitable true breakdown happens. She'll be safe. She seems nice. Yesterday I did bring up if I died rather abruptly, so I suppose they were a little worried. But really, I was more depressed by the fact that nothing would be solved by telling them. But I didn't plan on dying. At least not while I still knew nothing. I would never allow it. That's grim. Or it's a One Piece reference. I don't think One Piece wasn't out at this time. Like, for the in canon. In real life it did.
Hey.
The call ended like that. Sometimes my parents went off to Tokyo for business meetings. But Tokyo was far away. They normally did things by phone. Times they did go were normally planned out in advance. It never happened this suddenly. I couldn't say that those circumstances didn't feel strange, or rather, unnatural. Anyway, I only needed to recognize the reality of the situation. That tonight, I was the only one in the house. And when my parents came back from work, I'd be gone. Missing. Vanished. Looking back on the series of events of the previous 5 years involving Oyashiro-sama's curse, it wouldn't seem that strange at all. Come to think of it, it was getting pretty late. I didn't think it was good that the only light on in the whole house was my room on the second floor. It was the same as broadcasting to the enemy that my parents were gone and this was their chance. First I ran to the living room, flicked on lights, then turned on the TV to a reassuring volume. Next was the study. I similarly turned on the lights and some music. With this from the outside, it looked like my parents were here. Once again, I went through the house, checking to see if there was anything left unlocked, when I saw the veranda and the laundry still hanging out there. I went pale. Thought I made it too obvious. I needed to take it down. Whoops. I snatched the laundry haphazardly and erased all traces that my mother wasn't there. I should be fine now. The garage. They hadn't gone all the way to Tokyo by car, but they had gone to Okonomiya Station. The garage was empty, wide open, and in plain sight. Well, this was no good. I panicked and rushed out back to close the normally open garage door. It should be fine now. Oh, but I needed to get the paper. Oh, I always got the paper. Since I left in the afternoon, the evening paper was still out there. There's an evening paper? What the frick? Was that a thing with newspapers? They would do more than one each day? That's crazy. My premonition was correct. I pulled out everything from the mailbox and dropped it in the entryway. With this, for sure this time it should be fine. Come to think, well, I keep pressing the wrong one. Come to think of it, leaving the cupboard busted like that for my little freakout was kind of bad. I'd say I tripped and fell, and the bat I was holding smashed into it. Even so, just leaving it in its current state wasn't good. I should clean it up a little before Mom got back and scolded me. This scares me. I remember that there was a closet and dustpan in the closet. A broom and dustpan, rather. I said there was a closet in there. As I was going to get them, the phone rang once again.
もしもし、前原です。
あら、圭一くん、
Who's this?
お母様はいらっしゃいますかしら。
Oh.
今ちょっといないんですけど。
Oh, buddy. You idiot, Keiichi Maibara. Don't reveal that your parents are gone. You can follow up still. Calm down and take care of it.
すぐに戻ると思います。
That wasn't a good response either. Now they might say they'll call again or tell her to call them when she comes
なら
back.
結構です。大した話でもありませんから。では、失礼しますわね。
Scenario I feared didn't play out. Listening, a sigh of relief. The call was fortunate in more ways than one. I'd have to deal with any telephone calls coming from my parents tonight. I was somehow able to deal with the phone call just now, but I couldn't continue to rely on such poor improvisation. I needed to make up a good story to explain when my parents were home but couldn't answer the phone at the moment. They were making tempura and couldn't step away right now. Well, that wasn't good enough. They were sick and went to bed because they weren't feeling well. Was that going to be safe enough? I was thinking about it on the way back to my room when the phone rang once again. Rule of 3, baby! I knew they were calling because they knew I was going to lie. I didn't want to pick up, but I knew I had to. They'd suspect my parents weren't here. I should have just taken the phone off the hook and under the pretense that I didn't realize that it was. But since the phone rang, I had to pick it up. I prepared myself and lifted the receiver.
もしもし。
I stopped announcing this was the Maibara residence. I had no reason to be kind to someone I didn't know the identity of. But unlike my uncouth voice, the person on the other side sounded goofy and lighthearted. Oh my god. Bro. Okay.
沖宮消防の大石と申しますが。
大石さんですか。
前原さんですか。こんばんは。お元気そうで何よりです。
I wouldn't say we're doing well.
ちょっと待ってくださいね。
I grabbed the portable handset and rushed to my room with it. It was the same no matter where I was, since there was no one else home, but I wanted to be in a spot that felt just a bit safer when speaking on the phone with Ooishi-san. Close your damn door. Well, actually, wait, don't close your door. No, never mind.
いかがですか。その後お変わりは。
Since then, when was that exactly? There was something about the brazen way he talked that rubbed me the wrong way. Last time I spoke with Ooishi-san was 2 days ago. The day I stayed home from school, I met with Ooishi-san on my way back from the hospital, and we headed into town for lunch and had a talk. And after that, Rena and Mion came to check up on me. Whenever I spoke with Ooishi-san, they always knew about it. It was like that since the first time I met him. Today's phone call may well be found out by them as well.
もしもし、聞こえてますか。 前原さん。
あ、すみません。なんて言いました？
その後、何か変わったことはありません
See,
かとお
like,
尋ねしたんです。
because part of me is like, we should talk about the needle, but part of me also is like, that could only make things with Rena and Mion worse. There is no right answer.
返事がないんで焦りましたよ。
特には。
The words stopped in my throat. There was a ton of stuff that had happened, all of it baffling. What should I talk about? I didn't really understand any of it, but I should try asking. If I didn't ask now, I may never have another chance. This night when my parents weren't home, I had no guarantees I would make it through the night safely after
そ
all.
の大石さん、やっぱり俺命を狙われているみたいです。
本当ですか？
偶然の可能性もあるんですが、先日俺が病
Oh
気で休
boy,
んだ
we're
日、
revealing it all.
あの二人？
レナとミオンです。そしてそこで大石さんと一緒に昼飯を食ったことを正されました。
それで
お見舞いってことでおはぎを置いていったんですが、その中に針が入ってたんです。偶然飲み込まずに済みましたが、これってやっぱり脅迫でしょうか？
その針は？
よく見かけるような普通の裁縫針のようでした。糸を通す穴が開いていて。
違いますよ、前原さん。針です。
Yeah?
証拠になります。脅迫だと立証できるかもしれません。
Oh god, did we keep it?
その針はありますか？
That's right. That's it. I dropped the receiver and rushed down. Oh no, why am I scared? Rushed downstairs. When I tossed the mochi, I'd overlooked it out of terror, but that needle was a valuable piece of evidence. Let's see, I threw the mochi and the needle at the wall together. If it was there, then it would be on the living room wall. No, but Mom cleaned it probably, yeah. But my prudent mother had cleaned that living room wall and there was not a trace of mochi left on it. Could it be that it dropped between the gap between the wall and the carpet? I frantically searched by running my palm along the carpet, but nothing turned up. I tried moving around the sofa and the desks, pulling up my carpet and flapping it around, but I couldn't find the needle. Did my mom clean up everything without noticing it? It was just 2 days ago. I didn't know what day they collected the burnable trash, but it may still be in the trash bin in the kitchen. I rushed in the kitchen, opened up the lid of the pail, and poured out the contents. But even at a glance, I could tell it'd be incredibly difficult to find the needle in this pile of trash. Buddy, magnet. That's what you do. I mean, there's probably other metal stuff in there, but I was looking for a needle in a trash stack. I know, I'll try running my... Buddy, I'll try running my hand through it. It was a bit gross, but I was looking for a needle. If I felt a small prick, I'd be able to find it. It was a pretty tactless method, but it was the quickest. I held my breath and started striking the pile of trash with my hand. Filth threw about. There was nothing more disgusting than this, but it's not the time to be concerned about such details. I continued on for a while, but nothing turned up. I wanted to search more thoroughly, but I was still on the phone. I shouldn't keep Ooishi-san waiting for too long. Later, when Mom got back, I'd have to ask her if there was a needle. I hastily began scribbling on the notepad affixed to the magnet affixed to the refrigerator with a magnet. Was there a needle? I scrawled the words with a red pen, and then dashed back up the stairs where I had kept Ooishi-san waiting for far too long.
もしもし、どうでしたか？
見つかりません。あの時はつい気が動転していて。
そうですか。見つかればでいいんです。保管しておいてくださいね。
That's right. The needle wasn't the only incident. I had to tell him about the morning with the hit and run.
あと大石さん、それだけじゃないんです。実は今朝。
That van was definitely aiming for me. I could say that without question due to circumstance at that time.
その車のナンバープ
Yeah,
レートは
see, like
見ましたか？
this is where I'm like, man, a world before cell phones, you can't take
こ
pictures.
ちらでも探してみます。
Damn! At the time, I just flipped out yelling at him. I didn't look at the plate. What failures on my part with the needle and the plate number. I nearly threw up. Whoa, what the frick? I just thought about the needle. I was so focused, just protecting myself, that I let some of the most important details slip out of my grasp. I punched my pillow, annoyed at how worthless I was.
すみません。白いワゴン車ってこと以外はわかりません。
仕方ないことですよ、前原さん。惹かれかければ気も動転します。
やっぱりこれらって偶然じゃないですよね。
The only problem is the police would think it is. Ooishi-san started to hem and haw on the other end. I can imagine him folding his
あと
arms.
レナの様子も やっぱり怪しいです。
それはどんな感じですか？
Rena said on the way home today, asking why I was so much like Satoshi-kun. How could I say it? Now I could say it with confidence. That Rena knew what happened to Satoshi. She knew that there was more to him than simply disappearing.
レナは知っています。去年の鬼隠しにあったサトシのことを何か知っています。
それは具体的にどういうことですか？
レナが言うには、俺はサトシとそっくりらしいんです。このまま行くと、俺もサトシと同じ運命をたどると、そんな感じのことを言うんです。
運命ですか？具体的にどんな運命をたどるか言及しましたか？
天候と。
天候？
レナは、サトシは転校したって言ってるんです。で、俺もこのままだと転校しちゃうぞって。
Ooishi-san let out a stern sigh and grumbled loudly.
前原さん、それはおそらく何かの脅迫。
I love how he says this, but then gives no, cool, we get that. What do you want us to do? How can you protect us?
俺もそう思ってます。
At that point, I started to think, would it be prudent to sum up everything that happened up until now as the machinations of some human perpetrator? Other than the theory of it being Ren and the others, I was left with Oyashiro-sama's curse actually existing as the only explanation. Of course, I couldn't tell that to Ooishi-san. Except, Rena's strange behavior could be proof of either scenarios. Whether it was Oyashiro-sama's curse being real or everything being part of a conspiracy committed by all of the villagers, Rena was involved. Rena had to know something. Rena was suspicious. What exactly was Rena? I couldn't help but think she was involved with the prior string of mysterious deaths. I seem to recall that Ooishi-san had admitted that he had dug into Rena's past a little. He was probably just downplaying it when he said a little. I mean, he actually dug pretty deep, most likely. I wanted to hear about Rena. I want to know what happened at her previous school, among other things that were still unknown to me. If Rena was somebody I should suspect, well, no, not that. I wanted to know the truth. Tonight, I was alone in this huge house, even though I said I couldn't count on them. I had lost the security I had felt just by my parents being around. It wasn't like this house was some sort of fortress or castle. If a malicious person decided to use brute force, they'd easily gain entry. There were no other residences close to the Maibara residence. No one would be able to hear anything, no matter how loud it was. I'd never felt as much resentment towards my father's artistic temperament and the fact that he had this house built in such a remote location as I did right now. Oh no, why's the doorbell ring? I wondered if I would still be here by tomorrow morning. So I had to ask, are we ignoring it? Right now. Because I had no idea when the next chance would come.
大石さん、
we're ignoring it.
隠さないでくださいね。
ええ、何でも聞いてください。
Even though he was so far away on the other end of the line, this was the most reliable thing. This is the most reliable he had ever felt. I wanted to ask about Rena, about what happened at her previous school.
実はレナの
I noticed a sound that had been going on for a while now. Since I was so focused on the call, I hadn't paid attention to it at first, but finally realized that it was the doorbell. The time was 7 o'clock. It was past the time the postman would be making a delivery and past any sensible time for a neighbor to be visiting. I considered just acting like nobody was home, but that wouldn't be good. That would ruin all the work I put into making it look like my parents were home. I need to answer the
もしも
door.
し、前原さん？
すみません。誰か来たみたいですので。
Oh, he's gonna say to
ちょっ
not
と
do
玄関
it.
に行ってきます。
He's gonna say to not do
お
it.
客さんですか？
Oh no, he
すいません、
is.
すいません。今夜のお電話は
Oh
これくらいにしましょうか。
That would be a
あ、
problem.
いえ、すぐ戻りますから。電話はこのままでいいですか？
はいはい、構いませんよ。
He sounds so chill. I dropped the handset on my bed and dashed down to the door. I needed to make a good excuse to get them to leave. I had a hunch it was the lady who called right before Ooishi-san did. In which case, it would be one of the neighbors who's friends with my mom. I'll just say my mom isn't feeling well and went to bed early. That would be the easiest option. Hey, do you have one of those little flaps? You do! You do! Right there! Look through it! Don't just open it! Don't be an idiot! It'd be hard for me to ask, it'd be hard for her to ask me to wake my mom if she's not feeling well. The bell continued to ring at regular intervals. If someone didn't answer after you rang the bell so much, you'd normally give up and go home, wouldn't you? Without removing the oh my god, you're so stupid. You have the little door thingy. Without removing the chain, I opened the door slightly and peered out at the visitor. A chill ran down my spine. I knew it. Somewhere deep inside, I had prepared for this moment. I tried to escape by imagining it was the easiest person to deal with, one of my mom's friends.
こんばんは。
Oh
Rena.
god. There shouldn't be any reason for Rena to come over at this hour. The timing also made me feel uneasy, because it was just as I was about to ask Ooishi-san about Rena. I wish I could have chalked this up to mere coincidence, but those unsettling words from Mion several days ago echoed back to me.
さーてね。おじさんにわからないことはないからね。
See, the interesting thing— oh god, and she's in these
Rena
clothes.
Hitori.
The interesting thing is that phrase, this old man. Like, I know she says that for herself, but that could have other meanings.
うん。
Seems that Mion wasn't with her. That didn't change the situation at all.
何しに来たんだよ。
ねえ、ケイチくん。ちゃんとドアを開けてお話ししたいな。
Not now, I'm having a psychotic episode.
レナは玄関に入っちゃダメなのかな。
It was true that speaking through a chain door wasn't the right way to talk to a classmate.
うち、夜は必ずチェーンかけてるんだよ。気にすんなよ。
なら、仕方ないかな。
Rena looked at the ground sadly. But she kept smiling at least, and her effort to keep that smile up was quite pitiful. Even though she was tugging at my heartstrings, I didn't lower my guard. As long as I stayed like this, even if it made my heart ache, my life wasn't in danger. What I really feared, more than the possibility that hoodlums would assault me if I removed the chain, was trusting Rena enough to remove the chain and having my friendship be betrayed. As long as the chain wasn't unlatched, even if it made my heart ache, I wouldn't have to deal with being betrayed by Rena. Since it didn't seem like I'd removed the chain from her silent urging, she appeared to give up on trying to get into the entranceway.
あのさ、ケイチくん。ご飯食べた？
No, I haven't eaten. Since my mom wasn't there, dinner wouldn't be ready no matter how long I waited. I laid down when I got home, was woken up by the phone, and didn't have a chance to eat since I used up all the time talking. I was gonna have cup noodles in any case. I could just eat one whenever I wanted
Yeah.
to.
まだだよ。それがどうしたよ。
じゃあよかった。これ見て。
Oh god, more needle
お
mochi?
惣菜とか持ってきてあげたの。
Rena held out a stack of boxes wrapped up in cloth.
お台所とか貸してくれれば、お味噌汁も温めてあげられるよ。
See, she sounds so nice, but I don't know if I can trust her.
いいよ、そこまでしてくれなくても。
でも、お豆腐もお野菜もたっぷりなの。ケイチくん、そういうの嫌いかな。
There's no way I wouldn't like that. I love miso soup with lots of ingredients. White radish, carrot, burdock root, and potatoes. Dense and fibrous root vegetables. Yeah, that miso soup looks incredible.
ご飯も持ってきてあげたから、レンジで温めればすぐ食べられるし。
Just make sure you put the saran wrap on top, because then the moisture will then not evaporate out and make it dry. It drips back down and remoisturizes it. It's the best way to do it. Without a doubt, rice needs miso soup. Stuffing rice down your gullet, sipping miso soup in between ravenous bites. This was literally my breakfast, by the way. Like, I literally just had some reheated rice with miso soup for breakfast. What a breakfast. Oh, yes, how wonderful it is to be born
それ
Japanese.
からね、またお漬物を作ってきたんだよ。今度は山菜のお漬物なの。
Ooh, what are those? I'm gonna Google those. I'm curious. What are sansai pickles, I wonder? Let's see here. Let's go. I'm Googling it here. Sansai pickles. Those are also known as a sukemono, a type of Japanese pickled vegetable, which often featuring sansai, wild mountain vegetables. Okay, so they're literally like mountain greens. Okay, right? That sounds pretty good. That sounds pretty good. I'd eat that. Yeah. Before I'd moved to Hinamizawa, I often scoffed at the— oh, well, here we go, right? Thank you, but I scoffed at the mountain vegetables called sansai, but I was captivated by their charm the first time I tried them. Such a deep yet light flavor. These so-called supermarket vegetables taste rough and overpowering in comparison. If you had to describe them, they were like vegetables for the uninitiated. To become an expert such as myself, you first had to partake of sansai. It was common knowledge around here that the Ryugu family's traditional pickles were wonderfully delicious. See, now you know what I'm thinking? You know what would be a really fun thing to bring to conventions? You bring pickles and you sell them with, like, the Ryugu family stuff on them, right? Like, that's 'cause I don't go to conventions much anymore, but when I do, I love people that do, like, tea based on, like, anime and game flavors. It's like, you could do that with pickles. That'd be cool. That'd be a good one. That one's free. No matter what kind of pickles they were, they'd go so well with that fluffy white
それからね
rice.
それからね
Wait, there's more? So delicious. Oh, it just seems so delicious. Farewell to my unhealthy self who said he'd make do with cup noodles. Rena appeared to be in good spirits, and she was offering such a delicious sounding dinner. The stress evaporated from my gut, and hunger reared its voracious head. At the same time, my wariness of Rena suddenly dwindled. Rena did say she was alone. Well, shouldn't be a problem letting her inside. Though the possibility that I was laced with poison still hadn't been ruled out. At that moment, a cold chill ran down my spine once again. I couldn't understand why such a sensation had occurred just then, but the voice inside me was sounding the alarm. This happy Rena speaking of this charming dinner was dependent on one premise, and that premise was that tonight, dinner— Oh, yeah! Oh, how would she know? And that premise was that tonight dinner hadn't been made at my house, meaning it was under the assumption that my mom, who should be making it, wasn't here. At any normal household, 7 o'clock would be around the middle of dinner time. That's okay. I've heard this from people. That seems late to me. Huh? I feel like 7 o'clock is a late dinner, but okay. If my mom were here, we'd be eating dinner around this time as well. The fact that she brought over all the makings of a meal at this time was inherently strange. Unless she knew. Rena, did she know that my parents weren't home? But there was also the chance that this was a bluff. I had turned on the lights and a bunch of other stuff to make it seem like my parents were here. There was a chance that Rena wasn't sure if my parents were home, but I had to wonder. The laundry, the garage, the evening paper, there were plenty of signs of them being hastily tidied up. It was hard to say Rena didn't have a chance to determine if my parents were here or not, but there was no reason for me to confess that right now. I should try holding on to that fact as long as I could. First of all, the chain was still latched. As long as I didn't take it off, Rena wouldn't be able to do anything to me.
ありがたいんだけどさ、もう少しで夕飯ができるみたいなんだよ。
そうなのそうなの
せっかくで申し訳ないんだけどさ、
Unable to think of a good way to refuse, my words trailed off weakly.
でもちょっとはおかずになると思うな
悪いけど間に合ってるよ。うちのお袋ってさ、結構おかずをいっぱい作るんだよ。だから。
おかずあるの
With a smile that bordered on a cringe, I dodged her questions apologetically. But the feeling I tried to ignore began creeping up my back again. I spoke as if my mom was setting down dinner right now, but that didn't mesh well with what Rena was saying. Rena was talking as if she was aware of some obvious fact, and that I was aware of it as well.
ケイチ君もおかずとか作れるんだね。何を作ったのかな。
いや、別に俺が。
Rena had assumed out of nowhere that I had made the dishes. No, not so much as I'd made them, but rather that my mom hadn't.
本当に作ったのおかず、ケイチ君が
だから、俺が作ったんじゃないよ。お袋が作った。いや、作ってるんだよ、今。だからさ、悪いけど、レナの持ってきてくれたのは食べられないんだよ。
Rena fell silent at that moment. At that moment, I felt that the light had suddenly disappeared from her eyes.
ケイチ君のお夕飯、当ててみようか
なんだっていいじゃないか。
ね。
Conversation might appear natural at a glance, but Rena was firmly in control. Felt like I was being interrogated.
そのお夕飯、お湯だけで作れるんじゃないかな。
How do they know everything? What?
おいおい、侮るなよ。うちのお袋のスペシャルなディナーを見くびるなってんだ。そりゃもう満館全席状態ですごいのなんの。
I tried my best to put on a strong front, but couldn't grit my teeth quite right. So instead, I looked like someone who was borderline hysterical. Rena showed no reaction whatsoever, even to that
ケイ
silliness.
チ君、本当にお母さん、ご飯作ってってくれ
How-
たの？
How do you know she's out?
いやだからくれたんじゃなくて今作ってるんだよ。もうすぐ晩飯に。
Ren had taken that assertion of mine, that my mother was home and making my dinner right now, and was completely ignoring it. I could tell that the more I panicked, the colder Rena became.
ねえ、ケイチ君、
At that moment, an uncomfortable chill crept in from the gap in the doorway.
お母さん、お家にいるのかな？
I couldn't keep up this charade anymore. Rena, she knew full well that my parents weren't home, but I'd come too far to admit that now. Anyway, my parents were here and we'd be having dinner soon. That was the situation I'd concocted. So I answered. I told her she was here.
いるよ。もちろん。
I could feel the humidity drying out from the surrounding air, and his eyes were becoming even more frigid, piercing me with their gelid glare.
どうして？
何のことかな。
I tried acting casual, but the facade was torn off the moment I looked into Rena's eyes. That look, it informed me of Rena's response faster than she could open her mouth.
どうしてさっきから嘘をつくのかな？
嘘なんか。
嘘だよね。
嘘なんかじゃ。
嘘だよ！
Oh boy. Rena's outburst sent a jolt surging through my body. Ren and I were still separated by what few inches that slightly ajar but still chained door could afford. But despite that, I was still being cornered. My house, which I considered safe haven until now, had become more like a dark alleyway where no one could save me.
ケイチ君のお夕飯、当てるよ。ね。
I knew now that Rena had already known that my parents would not be here tonight. But it was still so strange that it had to come to this. Even if she somehow knew that my parents weren't home, there was no way she should be able to guess what I'd be eating tonight. But Rena said she'd guess. How could she guess? How could she know it was instant? Oh God.
当たりでしょ？
That I was going to eat. Wait, the cooking repertoire of a man who couldn't do housework is probably nothing but cup noodles after all. Yet this, statistically, was the most probable answer. I didn't mean she was
ラーメ
guessing.
ンだけじゃきっとお腹すくと思うな。ご飯とかも一緒の方がきっと腹持ちいいと思うよ。
Calm down, Keiichi Maibara. This was just a coincidence. Rena was just reading certain tales of mine. So the fact that she was interfering was... The fact that she was interfering... The fact that she was inferring what I was thinking alarmed me. But it wasn't actually as if she was reading my mind. If it was being read, then she was a demon. No, not a demon. Things like that, they couldn't possibly
好き
exist.
なの？
ラーメンがかよ。
豚骨生姜味。
What? Sorry, what did you say? I heard tonkotsu? Rena indicated that my point was indicated that my point, but what? Rena indicated that the point my answer was addressing was wrong. Okay, what did you say?
豚骨生姜味。
Okay, so I definitely hear tonkotsu, but I don't know the last one.
豚骨生姜味。
Yeah, so, I mean, did I say tonkotsu at some point? Her rebuttal was so short that I momentarily didn't understand the words Rena had spoken.
ごめん。
Yeah,
レナ
what? One more time?
今なんて。
何が？
今さ何が好きって聞いたんだよ。
It wasn't long before I regretted how carelessly I'd pushed forward with that question. It was such a simple answer. That was why I wasn't able to comprehend it.
豚骨生姜味。
Oh, right. That's what tonkotsu means. Oh my god. I wondered how I appeared in the moments my mind went. How I appeared in the moments my mind went completely blank. See, I can't even read this right now because I'm like so flustered. I wondered how I appeared in the moments my mind went completely blank until the moment I was able to recover. As my field of view began to distort, slowly swirling in a counterclockwise direction, I lost all sense of balance.
なんでそこまでわかるんだよ
I didn't even deny it. That was the type of frenzied state I was in. How could Rena know even this? Not even caring as I mashed my head against the door, I fixated my gaze on Rena. But she didn't even flinch when she saw me do
確
that.
かに勝った。まとめて勝った。俺が箱買いした。それがどうしてわかるんだ
なんでかな、不思議だね。
That's not an answer.
だね。
How could you dodge the question at a time like this? The chain and the door were suddenly no longer protecting
ど
me.
うしてわかるなぜ知ってる答えろ
買ったのはセブンスマートだよね。
Why do you know this? A shiver ran up my spine. I tried covering it up with an angry
だ
facade.
からなんで
Yeah.
わかるんだよ
圭一くんの後ろ、ずっと
Oh.
くっついてたから。
Oh no.
何を言ってんだよ
I couldn't understand why she was saying she'd been following me all this
だ
time.
から、レナが圭一くんの後ろにずっとくっついてたの。
What the frick? Like that night? That night I was absorbed in my phone conversation with Ooishi-san. I didn't even sense her being there, standing behind that door. Behind me, standing there just like that?
圭一くんがいろんなラーメン選んでるとこ、後ろからずっと見てたの。いろんな種類を選んでたんだよね。それでお母さんに怒られたの。
Oh my god.
高いラーメンばっかり選ぶから、
Oh
一
no.
種類にしなさい。
Oh no, no,
そ
no.
れで圭一くん、
Oh
大
no.
好きな大きいカップの豚骨生姜味を選んだんだよね。レナも好きだよ、豚骨ラーメン。でも、大きいカップは全部食べきれないけどね。
My brain was paralyzed, dulling my senses. Might have been a defense mechanism to diminish the fear I was feeling to non-traumatizing levels. With the fear being diminished, the fog enveloping my mind was cleared away. Then I could understand what Rena was saying and started to put meaning behind her words. Even so, my fear hadn't subsided completely. It was like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, eyes closed so I didn't have to look down. It didn't actually solve any of the basic problems. So I slowly took a step backwards. And as I withdrew, Rena advanced.
だから圭一くん、ここを開けて。レナと一緒にご飯食べよう。きっと美味しいから。ね。
Rena's pale, slender fingers squirmed through the crack in the door one at a time, as if they had a mind of their own, rattling the chain. Are you gonna slam the door on those fingers? Because if you're crazy, then that's not good. But if you're not, then... See, that's the thing. This is all predicating on the fact that I don't know if bro's crazy or not. If she had unlatched the chain from the door, a feeling of terror would have just exploded within me. But Rena didn't do that. She was simply imploring me to remove the chain. I tried my hardest to light the fuse to the powder keg in my heart, trying again and again, clatter, clatter, but it doesn't light. It doesn't light.
圭一くん。
帰ってくれ頼むから帰ってくれ
どうしてそんな意地悪を言うのかな。かな。
I will never hear kana the same way again.
帰ってくれ帰れよ帰れ
The powder keg inside me finally went off. No smoldering, it just exploded. I tackled the door. The force through the door had momentarily knocked Rena momentarily off balance. I couldn't hesitate here. I grabbed onto the doorknob with both hands, planted my feet firmly, and pulled with all my might. But that slamming sound I so desired didn't happen. Oh my god, it's happening. I could feel a tiny, disturbing bit of resistance keeping the door from closing. And the source of that was Rena's fingers. Each of those fingers wriggling, squirming around like the tendrils of a carnivorous plant through the crack in the doorway.
痛いよ圭一くん。痛
See, I don't know if he's freaking out or if this is real. It wasn't a harsh shriek, but more of a yelp she was trying to keep back. I kept on pulling the door with all my might. I didn't even realize that if I didn't loosen my pull on the door at least momentarily, Rena wouldn't be able to pull her fingers out, and that's why the door wasn't closing. I didn't care one bit for her apology. No matter how much she apologized, it didn't change any of what she had done up until now. It didn't change anything. Rena couldn't leave even if she wanted to because I trapped her fingers. Rena's white fingers had become deep red and were no longer even squirming. Rena's apologies were occasionally twisted with pain, but like a broken record, she was intent on repeating it over and over. Go away, go away, go away, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it. I pulled on the door even harder. Finally, Rena's fingers were somehow able to slip out from their imprisonment in the doorway. The moment that happened, the door closed soundly, and I could hear the thud of Rena falling on her butt on the other side. I locked the door immediately and made a loud clunk, voicing my rejection to Rena. Rena leaned against the door, apologizing profusely and nothing else. After confirming that I was sufficiently sealed off from her, I trudged away from the entryway. On the other side, I could still hear Rena echoing her apology. I'm sorry, those pitiful words. They'd be forever seeking my forgiveness. I didn't feel bad about this at all. That wasn't out of any sort of malice. I just felt a sort of hazy sense of relief that I was able to escape from Rena. Before, Mina threatened me at this doorway, saying there was nothing she didn't know. And just now, at the same place, Rena told me the same thing. My feeble attempts to disguise the fact my parents weren't home had served no purpose from the start. I should have just pretended to be out and not even opened the door. My meager plans hadn't helped at all. In Hinamizawa, it was impossible to outwit them. Even though I was on the other side of the door, I wanted to get away from Rena's, far away from Rena as possible. One step, 2 steps. With each, her sniveling apologies became more distant. I sprinted up the stairs and dove into my room. As you would expect, I was finally no longer able to hear Rena repeating her endless apology. Diving into my bed, I was startled by the hard lump I felt. There was something in my bed. Oh, it was the receiver. I finally remembered. I was in the middle of a call with Ooishi-san. Looking at the clock, apparently not much time had passed since I went downstairs. Could it be that my clock had run out of batteries? I talked with Rena for so long, how did almost no time pass? But the hand of the clock was ticking forward, 1 second at every second as usual. As I put the still warm receiver to my ear, time, which felt frozen, began moving once again.
もしもし、大石さん、お待たせしてすみませんでした。
いえいえ、大してお待ちしていません
Okay,
よ。
so yeah, that was not much time. It became apparent that the amount of time that had passed between myself and Ooishi-san was different. Over the phone, I could hear an energetic voice from a sports program or something. It drove home just how far away Ooishi-san really was.
今、レナが来ました。
遊びに来たんですか？
I wasn't confident that I could have coherently explained the situation to Ooishi-san. But I didn't need that right now. Right now, I needed to know about Rena. That's right, I was planning to ask Ooishi-san more about Rena, but Rena's little visit had interrupted the conversation. What was true and what was false, I couldn't tell. But the one thing I knew was the single grim reality that Rena was suspicious. I might be able to figure something out if I asked Ooishi-san about her. Up until now, I had regretted it whenever I forced myself to ask about things I was better off knowing. Not knowing, rather. But looking at it that way, you could say I'd hit rock bottom. There was no possible way I could feel any more regret than what I did right now. No, rather, I wanted to know if there was anything beyond this I would regret more. Forget about tomorrow. It wasn't out of the realm possibility for something to happen tonight. I wanted to know everything I could. I was absolutely not gonna die like this. Not without knowing anything. I definitely won't.
竜宮レナさんのことですか？調べましたよ。まあ簡単には。
I understood that Ooishi-san was talking in circles. A bit meant I dug so deep it'd be hard to discuss with you since you're her
そ
friend.
の簡単な全てを知りたいんです。
あなたが聞いて面白いような話はありませんよ。
大石さん、
I spoke as calmly as possible to Ooishi-san, who was continuing to avoid the issue. And then I said it.
竜宮レナは怪しいと思っています。過去の事件がたとえお社様のたたりによるものだったにせよ、竜宮レナは関わっています。
レナさんが怪しいと思える具体的な証拠があるのですか？
The manner in which Ooishi-san spoke became very firm. Do you have any sort of proof? That was him talking as a detective.
状況証拠だけです。
そうですか。
I could tell even over the phone how disappointed Ooishi-san was. Pulling on the fishing line when he felt a bite only to reel in the bait. Disappointed, but ready to cast the line once more. That's how it
大
seemed.
石さん、目に見える証拠がなければ動けないんですか？
What I meant was, you can't come and save me without proof. I stuck that barb in there. As Ooishi-san loved roundabout ways of saying things, he understood me just fine.
大丈夫ですよ、前原さん。あなたは私が守ります。
I don't think he will. I think we're going to die. That was not the least bit reassuring. I'm like 90% certain we're not making it out of this chapter. Ooishi-san was just using me to continue his investigation. I was just gonna get killed and my corpse would be an important piece of evidence. That was all I was to him.
大石さんの捜査は俺の生死と無関係でしょうが、俺は死ねば終わりなんです。
Ooishi-san went silent on the other end of the line. That may have been too blunt, but I didn't care. All I needed to relay to Ooishi-san was that I was currently in a very dangerous position.
だから話してください、レナのこと。サトシは転校しました。多分俺もそれほど遠くない将来レナの言う転校をするでしょう。ですが大石さんには俺の死体を見つけることもできないでしょうね。現にサトシの死体だってまだ見つけられてない。
前原さん、どうか落ち着いて。
I was already suppressing my agitation, even without Ooishi-san having to tell me. It wouldn't solve anything if I continued to scream about my mistrust in the police. It would seem I could only depend on myself and the bat Satoshi left behind to protect myself. Then I at least wanted to know about what happened before Rena transferred schools.
つまらない話になるのは。
You say that, but I don't know, bud. Ooishi-san, realizing my resolve couldn't be swayed, finally caved.
今の俺にとってつまらない話は何一つありません。お願いします。
まずいくつかお断りすることがあります。
はい。
他言無用でお願いします。また内容には一部憶測も含まれているかもしれません。すべてが真実ではないかもしれないということです。よろしいですね。
真実ではないかもしれない。言ってる意味がよくわかりません。
Hinamizawaの連続開始事件は捜査本部がありません。毎年の事件は個々に扱われています。ですから竜宮レナが捜査線に浮上したことは一度もないのです。つまりですね、
レナの調査は警察としてでなく、
Okay.
個人として行ったということですか？
ご理解いただけて助かります。話のほとんどは電話、もしくは会って聞かせてもらったものばかりです。ですから裏が取れていません。鵜呑みにしないでほしいということなんですよ。ご理解いただけますね。
全部聞いた話だけなんですか？
申し訳ないです。個人調査ですのでね。
あれ、以前レナのカルテを見たって言いませんでしたか？確かにそう聞きましたよ。
Ooishi-san paused for a moment on the other end of the line.
そんなことも言いましたかね。気のせいということにしてください。
I didn't care about Ooishi-san having certain obligations and responsibilities. I also didn't care if there was no proof. Even if they were just rumors, there's no smoke without fire after all.
話してください、大石さん。
わかりました。
Ooishi-san finally opened those tight lips of his. It seemed that Rena lived in Hinamizawa a long time ago. She moved to Ibaraki Prefecture just before starting elementary school. Then, following that, right after transferring, the unfortunate incident with the breaking of the school windows happened. Then Rena confided to the doctor. It was Oyashiro-sama. That was everything I knew.
私が知る話も前原さんと大きくは変わりません。
ではどこを詳しく調べたんですか？
I didn't need to ask. It was the incident right before she transferred back to Hinamizawa.
レナが起こした事件とその後の医者での告白ですね。
はい。
大石さんはその内容を知っているからこそレナたちを疑っているんですね。
ええ、疑っています。
やはりレナたちが犯人。
ああ、いえ、疑うとはそういう意味では
Wait,
ない
what? Ooishi-san was the type of person to say things with confidence, but these particular words were less than reassuring.
じゃあ何を疑ってるんですか？
親代様
Oh,
ですよ。
wait, huh?
親代様のたたりって
Oh,
本当にあるのかな
huh.
なんて
Okay. Now is not the time to make jokes if you're making jokes, but Ooishi-san's laugh was quite dry, certainly not the kind that would make you want to join in. Ooishi-san resumed that conversation about the dubious circumstances behind Satoshi's disappearance, course of events leading him to delve into Rena's past. Just then, there was thunder in the distance and a heavy rain started pouring down. Oh god, is there going to be a power outage? Could you imagine? Came without warning, a downpour fiercely beating the ground. I left the window in my room open a crack to let the heat out. Oh, buddy, that's a point where someone could climb up. The violent wind danced into my room, making the curtains flap wildly.
どうしました？
あ、いえ、急にすごい雨が。すみません。どうぞ続けてください。
I got up while still on the phone and grasped the window.
はじめに事件と申し上げましたが、学校側も被害者も告発していないので、正式には事件ではないのです。でですね、この辺りがどうも関係者皆さん口が重いんですよ。被害者の一人は片目に後遺症を残すぐらい殴られているのにもかかわらずです。
They didn't die, though.
学校側か、もしくは表沙汰になるのを望まない何者かがいろいろ根回しをしたのかもしれませんね。またカウンセリングを担当した神経科医も職業倫理に厳格な方で。もしもし、前原さん、聞こえてます？
Oh god, what's happening? Oh my god, no. There was a figure of a person standing by the light near the mailbox this whole time. Even in this torrential rain, they didn't have an umbrella. They were unquestionably drenched from head to toe. In this shower, which more resembled a waterfall, droplets of water dripped down from her hair. Just standing there, both arms dangling at her side. In one hand was the stack of boxes, wrapped in cloth. Her eyes focused on my room. God, it's so good. It's so scary. Focused on me as I was about to close the window. Her mouth was methodically repeating a chewing motion. Or is she saying I'm sorry over and over? It was as if she had put something hard to chew in her mouth with her cheeks puffing out. What could she be eating over there? How could it be at this time? I was more enthralled by Rena, instead of the shocking developments being brought to light by Ooishi-san. If it hadn't started raining, I wouldn't have gone to the window. Then I wouldn't have noticed Rena, nor would I have noticed that. Rena's mouth was moving in the same pattern. She wasn't eating something. Yeah, she was repeating something. What was it? What was she repeating to me? What was she saying? And why was I right up against the window fixated on her?
前原さん、聞こえてますか？もしもーし。
ごめんなさい。
Yeah.
前原さん。
ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。
もしもし、前原さん、どうしましたか？
Even in this torrential downpour, Rena was still apologizing. God, that's scary. The other self inside me drew the curtain hastily with my right hand, blocking my view of the outside. Even doing that, Rena's relentless apologies still reached my ears. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. If I forgive you for this, will you forgive me for that? Please stop, please stop, please stop, please stop. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Damn it. Why should I have to forgive her? I'm the one who wants to be forgiven. What part of me can't you forgive? I won't be killed. If you won't forgive me, then I won't forgive you either. I won't forgive, 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 won't forgive.
聞こえてるなら返事をしてください。もしもーし。
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy indeed. Do we got tips? Split personality and at the 7th mart. Oh boy. Rain of apologies falling on deaf ears. I love these achievements actually. They're really well done. I guess I can fix this here. Alright, split personality. What's this?
よく映画などに登場しますが、簡単に言
Oh,
うとどのよう
is this
な
the
もので
police
しょうか。
station?
複数の人格を持つことによる逃避と考えられています。
多重人格は逃避の一つなのですか？
さようです。そのメカニズ
Or
ム
what
は
if this is her
完全に
mom?
は解明されてい
Wait,
ま
the
せんが
mom, maybe her mom and
精神
the
を守るために脳が
and the
行う
doctor.
例えば貧乏な人がお金持ちになった自分を想像すると
Maybe?
いう現実
I don't
逃
know.
避
Or
って
maybe
あ
the
りますよ
nurse.
ね。
I don't know.
これも多重人格なわけですか？
極論はできませんが、講義的にはそう解釈できます。つまり誰にでもあり得る現象なのです。
その現実逃避の見境がなくなると二重人格になるのですか？
ちょっと難しいですね。そう提唱する説もありますし、否定する説もあります。
And there's some who believe that they have, like, fictional characters in their head. Mostly ones from Super Hulock, but we don't talk about them. Or Homestuck.
諸説紛々です。
Or Danganronpa.
では精神医学の世界ではまだ多重人格というのは未知の解明されていない現象なんですか？
残念ながらそうなります。今後の研究が期待されます。
でも二重人格なんてなんだかかっこいいです
No,
よね。
no, it's not.
どういう人が二重
No,
人
it's
格
not.
になれるんですか？
It's one of those things that you might think is cool in fiction, but you then take a look at anyone with it in real life and you go, oh my god, no, it's not.
なれると言いますか、なりやすいと言いますか。
Interesting. Okay, interesting. Didn't know about that. I wonder if that's real. I wonder how much of this is real and how much of this is just made up BS. Or out of date BS. That I fully believe.
大きく作用するのではないかと
See,
言
now
われています
that makes full sense.
そういえばこの A 君も家庭に問題を抱えてるんですよね。気の毒に
Person A. Now it says he.
7つの人格を持つ青
Wait,
年
what?
では VTR の続きをどうぞ。
Is this just a random guy?
ですがその前にコマーシャル。
Is the joke that you're watching in like a toku show or something? Okay. At the 7th mart. The 7th mart was a bargain supermarket with food and alcohol. What's this, Keiichi? So many! There's no reason to get all these different kinds, is there? I flopped all the different colored cup noodle bowls into the cart.
最近のカップ麺は凝ってて種類も多いんだよ。
I think that's a fair thing. You try them all, then you find the one you like, you know? I knew it was pretty selfish of me, but I thought I'd at least give it a try. Keiichi, buy them in the big case, it's cheaper. Or, sorry, that was Dad. Dad faltered. Well, I had a feeling it'd end up like this. Now that Dad had thrown his hat into the ring, I'd have to
それ
compromise.
じゃあ一種類しか食えないよ。飽きちゃうって。
I was resisting as a formality. I'd already given up inside and wasn't sure which case of noodles I'd to get. If you can't pick, then Mommy will pick for you. You don't have to rush me. I quickly searched the case of noodles for what I want. Cases of noodles for what I wanted. Pork bone and ginger, large cup. Hey, Keiichi, can't you get a normal one? I'd let Mom pick. She'd err on the side of safety and get soy sauce or salt flavored. So when I plonked a large box of pork bone flavor in the shopping cart, Mom looked back at me with an expression as if to say, "These ones?" To show her that was my last compromise, I began explaining my choice.
豚骨はうまいんだよ。
Pork bone is
大
good.
盛りだけど
Yeah.
大味ってわけじゃないし。
I remember insisting that the noodles I picked up were the right kind. Okay, In the frozen memory in time, this encapsulated world, I didn't have the power to look around my surroundings. So I did what I could and reached out with my hearing and vision, sharpening my senses to find the presence I overlooked. No matter how much I searched through my field of vision, I couldn't see Rena. And we rewound the situation searching, but of course I couldn't find her. Then, was she spying at me from my blind spot? I go through the sound and presences again looking. I could sense the other customers. They were all mixed about, moving as they please. There was nobody looking over this way and no one trying to get behind me. Not here. Couldn't be here. Probably wasn't here. I would definitely notice if someone was right behind me, even if I wasn't on my guard. I smiled wryly at the thought of using a vague word like probably right before contradicting it with definitely. And I paused my mental replay as a chill ran down my spine. There was definitely a presence like a shadow behind me. That was a terror unlike any other. If a presence really had manifested behind me, I would definitely have turned around to check for it. But the world had moved on and there was no way for me to turn around. While carrying that frightening shadow on my back, I was gleefully running around the store searching for a case of noodles. Running through the instant noodles section, bad-mouthing my mom, but there was that presence constantly at my back, sticking to me like a shadow. No way to see what it was. Realizing it now after the fact was horrifying and repulsive. In that moment of time, I was running around gleefully, carrying that cardboard box. Tip, tap, but listening that moment again, I could hear footsteps other than mine going pit-pat with every step. Tip-tap, 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 pit-pat, 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 tip-tap, tip-tap, pit-pat, pit-pat, tip-tap, tip-tap, pit-pat, pit-pat. I was running around, the sound of those bare footsteps. Bare footsteps? Wait, barefoot footsteps? Wait, barefoot? What the heck? Going pit-pat were right behind me. That's weird. Me running around gleefully in that closed-off moment in time. But I didn't hear it. No, I heard it. That's why I remembered it. I didn't think I heard anything. That's why I didn't turn around. That is why I didn't turn around. In that moment, the pit-pat of those footsteps were following me the entire time. I couldn't run faster and escape. Couldn't run away any faster than I had ran at the time. Couldn't turn around. I hadn't turned around before, not once. Then I returned to my parents and started talking. A shadow-like presence was right at my back. Since I didn't move, the shadow didn't move. That's why I made no sound. That was all. At the time, I hadn't taken a single step while talking with my parents. I was just standing there. That was undeniable, and yet I heard it. A pit-pat. That shouldn't be. If I took 3 steps, it followed 3 steps. Wasn't that the rule? There was no sound other than that. At the time, the entire world had gone dark. A sudden darkness. It was the end of my reflective journey. I was tired. I wanted to end it. Someone turn on the light. Except my body couldn't move, as if I was sewn into that moment of time. Pit-pat. My past self's hair stood on end. That's impossible. Now that's just breaking the rules. I haven't moved, so you shouldn't be moving either. I couldn't move, so you shouldn't be able to move either. Follow the rules. Pit-pat, yet that sound echoed in the darkness once again. The hair on the back of my neck pricked up on end. It was so close that it was hard to tell whether it was touching the hair or not. Why couldn't I move? Like the presence was moving behind me. Quickly realized I could move. It's just that I was scared and didn't want to. But now was the only time I could turn around. There was something unforgivable in this moment in time. But I needed to turn around immediately. As if my entire being was trying to force me to stop, it began to administer a pain like a needle being stuck into my every pore. I'll turn around. I'll turn around. I'm not scared at all. I'll turn around. I'll turn around. I'm not scared at all. A scream I was unable to vocalize. I'm not vocalizing that. I turned around. At first, I couldn't understand the meaning of it. What is this? Just as a person's mouth might bite into an apple, slurp the juices, and discover that it was an apple, my mind began to process the scene before my eyes by eating the apple. Munch, munch, chew, chew. Slurp the juices and discover the apple. Meaning, what was in front of me was What? Oh, great, cool. Detective, read all the tips in Onikakushi. Well, that's a good way to know that we will probably be finishing up next time with the final chapter of Onikakushi here. Chapter 12, which I know was the end, but that kind of confirms that it's the end. Oh boy, I think we're going crazy. I think we're the one who is, you know what, I'm going to say it. The inspiration from Tsukihime seems very evident. This reminds me a lot of what goes on with Tonoshiki, but I think unlike with Tonoshiki, this is real, and I think we're the only crazy one. That's where we're gonna end it off and see what happens next time, guys, as we finish up with the Onikakushi chapter for Higurashi. I'll see you guys then for some more as things get definitely completely normal, and we won't have a bad time. It'll go back to being fine, right? Right? Okay, guys. Ciao.
Yo.